Good evening, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters in for Laura Ingraham. Welcome to the Ingraham Angle. We begin tonight with our top story, more talk and little action from the Democrats on sexual harassment. Yesterday on Thanksgiving Day, Democratic Senator Al Franken issued yet another apology in the face of more accusations of sexual misconduct. The Huffington Post reported Tuesday that two anonymous women said Al Franken grabbed their backsides during photos with the senator. After initially saying he didn't remember the incidents, Franken released a bizarre statement saying in part, quote, "I'm a warm person. I hug people. Some women have found my greetings or embraces for a hug or a photo inappropriate, and I respect their feelings about that. I feel terribly that I've made some women feel badly, and for that, I am so sorry." And there's more news about Democratic Congressman John Conyers, who was already reeling after BuzzFeed reported on Monday that 4 women complained that he made unwanted sexual advances to members of his female staff. According to a Detroit Free Press report yesterday, prominent Washington, D.C. lawyer Melanie Sloan claims Conyers was verbally abusive and once showed up to a meeting in his underwear, where she worked as Democratic counsel on the House Judiciary Committee in the 1990s. Neither Conyers nor Franken is showing any signs of resigning, with some analysts saying Franken and Conyers are quickly becoming liabilities for the entire Democratic Party.
I think for Democrats, when you look at the accusations against Al Franken and John Conyers, they're in a very difficult, significant political spot. For years, they have gone after Republicans, accusing them of engaging in a war on women. They have been, politically speaking, the champions of women's rights and women's equality and all of these sorts of things. If they go soft on Franken, if they go soft on Conyers and anybody else on the Democratic side that is found to have credible allegations against them by women on the record, it's going to undermine their political credibility greatly.
Joining us now for reaction from Healdsburg, California, is Republican strategist John Jordan. And here in New York, Kathy Aru, who is the publisher of Catalina magazine. So ladies first, Kathy.
Thank you.
I'm a warm person and I hug people. Is that a legit alibi?
Not a legit alibi, no, but I mean, I've met Al Franken. I've interviewed him for the Washington Post. And
how did that meeting go?
It went fine. He didn't hug me. It was fine.
So maybe he's not a hugger.
He wasn't a hugger with me. But I think that the punishment, I mean, he's been punished. He's apologized.
How has he been punished?
Well, Pelosi is asking for an investigation for Conyers, and Warren said that Franken might have a hearing. So I think that they will face their punishment. He's apologetic, unlike Moore in Alabama.
Well, he hasn't been punished yet. Let's be clear about that. And is just saying I'm sorry, is that good enough?
Well, does it fit the crime? He's facing what he's facing right now. So we don't know right now, but it looks like he is going to have a punishment.
Okay, well, we'll see about that. The Senate's Ethics Committee is not really known for issuing very strong punishments. John, there's a new poll out from Politico. It's not looking good for Senator Al Franken. I believe only 22% believe he should stay in the U.S. Senate. How bad is this for Franken, but also for the entire Democratic Party? Because there's a lot of senators that really haven't spoken up much about their colleague.
Well, first of all, it can't be too bad for Senator Franken for 2 reasons. As your previous guest pointed out, the Ethics Committee is not known for stiff punishment. Second of all, he was just reelected from Minnesota, so he won't see the voters for quite some time. This is, however, a disaster for the Democrats, whose central playbook has always been the war on women, dividing America by gender, race, and everything else, and holding themselves out as the champions of women's rights and beyond reproach, while Republicans, on the other hand, are nothing short of ogres. And the media, and this is an unreported story, the media has been complicit in building this narrative. And now it's exposed. It's not principle, it's politics.
Interesting. And you know the Democrats rely on women voters. I think 56% or 54 went to Hillary and President Obama. So they cannot afford to alienate their base and kind of not cast aside these serial gropers, can they not?
No, they cannot. I mean, but these guys are showing remorse, unlike Moore in Alabama. Alabama, and Trump had no remorse whatsoever for what Moore's doing in Alabama. So Trump almost apologized for Moore. So the Democrats are not apologizing for Franken and Conyers' behavior.
Well,
this is quite different.
I believe Nancy Pelosi said on the record that they have a zero tolerance policy for harassment. Now, if you have a zero tolerance policy, then a resignation, John, I believe, should be the next step.
They don't have a zero tolerance policy. They have a sometimes tolerance policy. The Democrats' position on this type of behavior is they impose one standard on Republicans while sweeping it under the cover for their own members. The rules are for thee but not for me mentality, because that is necessary for them to have electoral success. So the hypocrisy has been laid bare, and I think it's going to really undermine a big part of their case going into 2018.
Kathy, if you're showing up to meetings in your underwear and you're shoving your tongue down people's throat.
Allegedly.
Okay. Well, I thought we were supposed to give the women the benefit of the doubt. I believe
right, but also it's innocent until proven guilty.
Okay, sure, but there's also photographic evidence of Al Franken.
Right, that is true.
There's settlements.
That's true. That's true.
There's settlements too. So let me ask you this. Do they have any credibility when they come back to Congress and they come back to the Senate speaking with any authority on certain issues?
Well, they seem remorseful. They seem apologetic, and we are going to see
You're
them.
very hung up on them being remorseful. I know they're remorseful. They may be remorseful that they were caught.
It's such a contrast to Moore. It's such a contrast. As a feminist, I'm happy this is coming out. I'm happy that women are discussing this, and we're able to finally get these problems out in the open. But these guys will have their day. They will have to explain what's going on.
They may not have their day.
But the Democratic leaders are asking for that. Warren and Pelosi are asking for that day.
We all know shipping it over to the Ethics Committee does nothing. Isn't that right, John? I mean, what would you like to see? Do you think he should resign?
And it'll get buried. It'll get buried where it'll be page 10 news and nobody sees or hears anything about it. The hearings will drag on. So, no, it's not going anywhere. When has the Ethics Committee really punished anybody for this sort of thing?
Let me ask you about Conyers. Let's kind of focus on him now. Where's the CBC, the Congressional Black Caucus, been? Have they said anything? I haven't heard anything about that. I haven't heard anything except one word from a congressional Democrat. Kathleen Rice, I believe, said that he should step down, John Conyers. The silence is deafening, because if this was a Republican and he'd settled lots of sexual harassment cases, walking around in his underwear in front of females, I mean, come on. I think every Democrat in the House would go on the record right now and say he needed to step down.
Well, Pelosi has said that she's not going to tolerate this. Pelosi did say that they were going to have an investigation. So they are speaking up. The Democrats aren't hiding from this. They are definitely speaking up.
All right. Well, one of the reasons the Democrats...
Not hiding from it. They're burying it.
They're not. Pelosi is speaking up. They're not hiding. But Warren and Pelosi, both women, are speaking up.
I think what happens is when there's a Republican involved in any scandal, the members of the media run with microphones in hand to their doors and make them say on the record what they believe. Now, there's no press asking any Democratic members of Congress in the House or the Senate to go on the record. It seems like, as no one's really gone on the record.
Well, when you have Trump defending Moore the way he defended him, it was unpresidential.
Well, listen, Donald Trump has been known to do unpresidential things, but Donald Trump, by defending Moore, is probably doing what every Democrat did in the 1990s. It's pure power politics.
But they're not doing that now.
Keep the guy in office so he can help the agenda and then let everything else slide.
Every major Republican has cut off the Moore campaign. The National Republican Senatorial Campaign walked away from this race. Numerous Republicans, elected officials, have condemned Roy Moore. And by the way, these are 38-year-old allegations without pictures and without payoffs, unlike Conyers and Franken.
Oh, Moore's innocent?
But still, everybody's walked away and disavowed it in the strongest possible language, and the Democrats refuse to do that in this case.
Not true. Warren and Pelosi have been very strong. I feel they've been very strong women in this case.
No, I think Warren ran away when she asked if Franken should resign. And also you said that, innocent until proven guilty, but then you've convicted Moore. So
I haven't convicted him, but I'm just asking, is he innocent?
Anyway, directly ahead, a massive terror attack today in Egypt. President Trump says it's another reason why America needs the wall and a travel ban. Is he right? Two experts will tell us when we come right back. Islamic militants massacred at least 235 people today in Egypt when they detonated a bomb inside a crowded mosque and brazenly shot at panicked worshippers as they fled the scene. ISIS is the chief suspect for the carnage. President Trump reacted strongly on Twitter, writing in part, quote, "We have to get tougher and smarter than ever before, and we will. Need the wall, need the ban. God bless the people of Egypt." As you might imagine, that did not sit well with Democrats.
I'm disappointed that the President of the United States could not behave like a commander-in-chief and a president that would offer the President of Egypt and the people of Egypt, which I want to do right now, my deepest sympathy and prayers for them. It is absurd and really embarrassing. As a member of the Homeland Security Committee, we know this all the time. We're in classified meetings about this, but it is embarrassing not to acknowledge the pain of a particular nation.
Well, the president acknowledged exactly that in his tweet when he said, quote, "God bless the people of Egypt." Joining us now for analysis from Washington is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, a former intelligence operative and a vice president at the London Center for Policy Research. And with me here in New York, Buck Sexton, a radio talk show host and a former CIA analyst. So let's just start off the top. Tony, Sheila Jackson Lee, I mean, come on. This is, she always makes fun of Republicans when Republicans say, "My thoughts and prayers are with victims of gun violence." Now there's terror violence, and she's offering thoughts and prayers. I don't get it.
Where were they 2 years ago when they cut off the weapons the Egyptians needed to go kill these folks? I mean, that was a complete lack of sympathy. Look, the things we're seeing right now, Jesse, are a result of the complete failure of leadership by the Obama White House and by the Obama Congress. They were screaming for assistance. President Obama himself cut off what we used to have this exercise we just started again this year called Bright Star, where we exercise and help train the Egyptians. Where were the Democrats when Obama cut all of that off? They were nowhere to be found. So I think it's not only lunacy that she's saying this, it's disrespectful to the president, who was actually trying to do everything he can to fix the situation. And as every time they do this, they're grandstanding and will accomplish absolutely nothing except get in the way of progress.
That's true. So let's just talk about the attack itself, Buck. These are, we assume, ISIS militants at this point, and they're going after Muslims praying in a mosque in Egypt. What's going on? It seems to be a complete civil war situation within Islam.
So there's a very active affiliate of the Islamic State in the Sinai. There are a bunch of affiliates around the world that are also going to become, I think, more active with terrorist attacks, engage in more mass casualty events like this because of the losses that the Islamic State has suffered in Iraq and Syria. There's a sense that what was so powerful about the Islamic State before? It was winning, and therefore the propaganda that it was pushing around those, it was winning in Iraq, it was winning in Syria, that was what they were telling people. Now they've lost Raqqa. Now they're on the defensive. And so you have these other entities, other groups like this affiliate in Sinai that is trying to pick up the terrorist slack, if you will, and have a more prominent role on the world stage. Now, why would they target Sufis? Sufis are a mystical sect of Islam. They are considered by hardliners, and this is actually a debate that's happened inside jihadist circles between al-Qaeda and ISIS and the Islamic State, which is, can you target Muslims who aren't the kind of Muslim you want? Are they takfir? That's the word that they use for them. And Sufis are mystics. They are considered to be actually polytheists by some of these jihadist hardliners. So they attack them to show their purity and to show that the Egyptian people the Egyptian government can't actually protect its own people.
And so the Egyptian government, notorious for treating their enemies the way they treat their enemies. I mean, I can't even imagine, Tony, what the Egyptian military is going to do to anybody they think is responsible for this. What do you predict to be the repercussions after something this heinous?
Well, look, I've met with their chief intelligence officer, and look, they're at a war. This is a war. You do things which are militarily necessary to win that war, and I think they're going to go into this with clear eyes.
Yeah,
and
I think it's going to be a little tougher than waterboarding. Let's put it that way.
And rightfully so. I mean, look, as Buck just pointed out, these people are killing anybody, to include their fellow members of the Islamic faith, simply because they don't have this very severe belief that they need to kill people to make their point. So, and the Egyptians have to kill them back. And we have to understand, Jesse, that you need to fight to win. The Egyptians are going to have to do that, and it's going to be bloody.
So the president comes out and tweets, we need the wall and we need the travel ban. And I thought it was savvy to link the wall on the southern border with Mexico to national security, because he's saying it's not just about preventing illegal aliens from crossing over the border. It's about preventing the possibility of Muslim radicals crossing the border. And I think that's a pretty effective argument.
Well, as you look at what phase the Islamic State's in now, there are two major concerns. I just spoke to you about the affiliates. That's obviously a huge problem. We just saw that in the Sinai. Then there's also the problem of returnees, of the former foreign fighters who had joined the Islamic State who are going to try to infiltrate. They've already done this in Europe. We've seen mass casualty attacks in Europe because of this. We know they also want to do this in the United States. And if they didn't want to do it, we'd have to ask the question why it would be so effective for them to get trained operatives into the U.S. for a mass casualty attack. And so when the president's tweeting this out, he's saying, look, ISIS is still very active. We still are in a world where jihadists are trying to kill as many people as possible. We need to do everything that we can. He's not drawing a straight line between a wall and what happened to Sinai. He's drawing a line between the threat of the Islamic State and doing everything he can do as commander-in-chief to make sure that we are safe here at home.
Yeah, people are making fun of the president. They say, oh, what do you want to build a wall around Egypt? What is that supposed to be? I just don't think they can even follow him on Twitter. And by the way, he tweeted this about the Egypt attack while he was golfing with Tiger Woods. So he literally has the world at his fingertips, Tony. I'll give you the last word.
He could literally do, multiple tasks at the same time. Imagine that. The last guy apparently couldn't. And to that point, look, as Buck was saying, we have to be aware that it's not just Mexican drug cartels who can figure out the way to get illicit goods and people across the border. The bad guys will too. And the ISIS folks have had aspirations of doing things here. We do know they plant people in both the refugee pipeline as well as any sort of illegal or illicit activity that they can get a hold of. Look, that's why some of the folks have come across out of Libya into Europe, because they've gotten into the refugee stream there. So
right.
This is not a Muslim ban. The Muslims I've spoken to here, Jesse, don't want the violent Muslims coming here to kill them as well. So the idea here is the president has to do things to set up mechanisms and gateways so that the good folks get through, we maintain commerce, and shut down any potential of the bad guys coming here. It's very simple.
And if the travel ban prevents just one bad guy from coming into the United States, it's a success.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jesse.
Coming up, why an uproar over Obama holdovers at ICE is getting so intense. President Trump has had to call the ICE union chief. Plus, jurors will soon decide the fate of Kate Steinle's killer. But one San Francisco judge still has no problem with San Francisco's sanctuary city policy and says President Trump can't do anything about it. Really? We'll have a debate after this quick break. Jurors in San Francisco on Monday are set to resume deliberations on the alleged killer of Kate Steinle, a 5 times deported illegal immigrant from Mexico who prosecutors say gunned down 32-year-old Kate on a San Francisco pier in July of 2015. The shooting sparked a national debate about San Francisco and other liberal big city sanctuary policies of refusing to cooperate with the federal government on immigration matters. One person who doesn't seem to have a problem with sanctuary cities is far-left San Francisco federal judge William Orrick. Earlier this week, he issued a permanent block on President Trump's executive order that seeks to withdraw some federal funding to sanctuary cities. Former Republican Congressman and Fox News contributor Jason Chaffetz had some wise words on how to respond to the judge's ruling.
There's a way to actually solve this problem, because if he's saying that Congress has not given the president the proper authorization, guess what? The reauthorization for all the funding of the federal government moving forward has to happen by December 8th. 1 or 2 sentences placed into that funding bill, which will pass, will solve this problem, give the president the authority.
Joining us now for reaction in Fort Worth, Texas, is immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez. And in Chicago, Fox News contributor Steve Cortez. I am good, Francisco. So let me start with you. In Alabama, Judge Moore, when he was not cooperating with the federal government with regards to enforcing gay marriage law, he got shut down immediately. So why is it okay for San Francisco officials to not cooperate with federal immigration law?
Well, it's a completely different subject. In San Francisco, you're dealing with a money issue. Who's going to pay for people that are going to be incarcerated to honor the federal ICE holds?
But it's a financial issue as well in terms of marriage, too. You get paid for marriage licensing, and that was what the whole beef was.
No, that had to do with the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution.
Right, but there's still a financial component, I'm saying.
Tell me what the financial component of that is.
Yeah, when you go to the courthouse, you have to pay marriage licensing fees, and when you form a union, you know, you're taxed as a couple, you file jointly, that kind of thing.
Well, but no. It's a $25 filing fee for a marriage certificate. Really, that's a completely different issue.
All right, Francisco, let me give you another analogy. Hold on. So what about a gun shop in Texas? And someone comes in to buy a gun and they don't feel like delivering the guy's name to the federal background database. They don't believe in it, and they're going to resist and not cooperate with the feds on background checks and just sell the guy a gun. How's that different than San Francisco?
Well, there's two issues. There's two issues. One, it is a private company, okay, and it is a criminal offense not to submit the name. In the case of San Francisco, there is no such thing as a sanctuary city. They don't exist. It's a political phantom. Everybody's afraid of it, but nobody can see it. What you're talking about is if the Immigration Customs Enforcement Agency wants the jail to hold someone for whatever reason, they send a piece of paper, and the cities are wanting to know who's going to pay for the incarceration costs for all these folks that supposedly they could pick up anytime they want.
All right, let's get
Francisco,
Steve in here. What do you think about that
I have to get in here because you are lying. That is not the truth. What happened in San Francisco in this case specifically in this case specifically with Kate Steinle, okay? Her killer, this wasn't just bad luck. This wasn't just an unfortunate circumstance. Her killer was detained weeks before, 5 times deported previously, arrested, detained by the San Francisco Police Department. ICE issued a detainer, which is the legal request to have custody of him to deport him for the 6th time, which is absurd in and of itself. And the San Francisco Police Department, let me talk, and the San Francisco Police Department, because of the awful liberal policy of that city to protect illegal immigrants over the rights of legal U.S. citizens, decided to ignore the ICE detainer. He was released into San Francisco. Weeks later, he killed a beautiful young American in cold blood who died in her father's arms.
Yeah, I mean, San Francisco city officials have blood on their hands, Francisco.
This is the tragedy of liberal politics over common sense and common decency, quite frankly.
Immigration could have picked him up in L.A. County before they took him to San Francisco. ICE could have taken him the first day he stepped foot in San Francisco. The federal government does not need the cooperation of a city, of a state, or a county.
How does the federal government know when a 5 times deported... Hold on, Steve.
Francisco, they give them the fingerprints. They get the fingerprints from the federal government. They already know they're there. Go pick them up. Why do you need an immigration hold? Take them away. We do it every day.
If someone's roaming around the city of San Francisco, the feds have no idea he's there until he gets picked up.
If he gets booked into the jail, they run his fingerprints.
Yeah, right. So he gets picked up, they run the fingerprints, and then the city of San Francisco's responsibility is to then report that to ICE. And if ICE says, yeah, hold them, and they don't hold them, they have blood on their hands.
No, it's not. They have to hold them for 48 hours. If the ICE does not pick them up after the 48 hours from the immigration hold, they don't have a legal reason to hold somebody. But then again, let's remember this guy.
Yeah, they have a legal reason to hold somebody because the feds say hold them.
Jesse, I think before we get mired...
Let's let Steve get in. Go ahead, Steve.
Before we get mired too much in the exact details of this case, and I think, by the way, they completely argue against sanctuary cities, but before we get mired too much in the details here, in the minutia of this specific case, the principle is what's more important. And I think cities like Chicago, where I am, like San Francisco, these cities have willfully, and I'm glad you mentioned Alabama, Jesse, because they remind me a lot of George Wallace in the 1960s. What these local mayors and some of the governors are doing is saying to the federal government, we don't want to obey your laws for our own narrow political interests, for our own politically correct agenda. And so we're going to just choose to ignore your laws, just as the Southern governors chose to ignore civil rights laws. Well, guess what? Federal law is paramount, particularly when it comes to immigration, and the safety of the citizens of the United States, of Chicago, of San Francisco, of cities all over this country.
Their
safety is being jeopardized because of a narrow, politically correct, liberal political agenda. And by the way, talk to cops on the beat, as I do here in Chicago. They want to cooperate with ICE. Of course they do. They want to help federal law enforcement.
Francisco, 30 seconds. We'll give you the last word. Go ahead.
Guys, there is no way that any city, state, county can oppose the federal government. Okay, guys, if we want to fix this, let's get on with fixing immigration. Let's get on with the important thing about this country. But if we got to talk about these holds are good for 48 hours. They do not have authority to hold them after 48 hours. That's all they're saying is we're following the hold 48-hour rule that immigration put in place. Now, guys, let's move on to immigration reform and stop talking about this.
Well, let's move on and build the wall. Then he wouldn't have come back across the border 5 times. Guys, got to run.
Amen.
Coming up, has Roger Goodell lost control of the NFL? President Trump rips the commissioner amid new national anthem demonstrations. Plus, Colin Kaepernick gets an absurd hero's welcome in an un-Thanksgiving protest. When we come right back. Welcome back. Apparently, not even Thanksgiving is too sacred for a national anthem protest by an NFL player. Yesterday, the New York Giants' Olivier Vernon took a knee during the anthem, which, incidentally, was sung by a U.S. Army Master Sergeant. Evidently, it did not go unnoticed by President Trump, who lashed out at NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell today, writing on Twitter, quote, "Can you believe that the disrespect for our country, our flag, our anthem continues without penalty to the players? The commissioner has lost control of the hemorrhaging league. Players are the boss." Meanwhile, the man who started it all, Colin Kaepernick, planted a new flag in his social justice crusade, making a surprise appearance at an un-Thanksgiving protest on San Francisco's Alcatraz Island yesterday.
I'm very humbled to share this space with all of you. I realize that our fight is the same fight. We're all fighting for our justice, for our freedom. And realizing that we're in this fight together makes us all the more powerful.
Joining us now with reaction from Los Angeles is Gianno Caldwell, a Fox News political analyst, and from Washington, Garland Nixon, a radio talk show host. All right, well, let's start with Kaepernick, guys. He says that his fight is the same fight as the Native Americans, and they're both fighting for freedom. Gianno, explain to me how that works again.
So let me tell you why I have a real big issue with what Colin Kaepernick is doing. So protests are really good to get media attention, but that's not where they should end. If you really want to do something, because I think Condoleezza Rice said something that was very important, which was slavery was a deflect in our nation's history. Racial injustice obviously still exists and of course is pervasive in the criminal justice system. But if you want to really change things, you can go do that on the Hill. Right now there's a bipartisan bill on criminal justice reform, which are being pushed by the leaders in the Senate, and if he really wants to help, he can go and use his influence and his mega platform that he now has in favor of that.
Yeah.
Further,
maybe he could run for Nancy Pelosi's seat out there in San Francisco and get something done in the halls of Congress. Garland, let me ask you a question here. I feel like he can't stick to the right protest. First, it's against police brutality, then it's against racism, then it's against America. And now he's fighting for Native American rights. I mean, what's next? Is he going to go to the Women's March next? I mean, pick one, right?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is that if you're fighting for universal rights as opposed to hierarchical rights, there isn't really one to pick. So I think that what he's demonstrating is that he is seeing himself as a leader for the current civil rights movement. Yeah, if you look now on the issue of civil rights in America, there are not a lot of young leaders, if any, that are recognized. And I think he's being recognized as a young leader. I think we see that the Native Americans here recognize bringing him there will bring that attention and bring a lot of respect to their movement.
I don't know how much of a leader he actually is, though, because he hasn't done any real interviews with any mainstream media publications. I mean, if he really wanted to get his message out specifically about injustice, come on Fox, come on any number of the networks, but he's been hiding, and then he shows up at random Native American protests. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Let me, Gianno, get to you on the guy that kneeled. This guy, Vernon from the Giants. You know, his father's a police officer in Miami. I don't understand why he would do that on Thanksgiving while a Marine sergeant is singing the national anthem. I just don't get it. Do you get it now?
No, honestly, I didn't know who this player was. Similar to Kaepernick, I didn't know who he was until the kneel. So I'm not sure exactly what his purpose and intent was. We saw that some of the players weren't kneeling at first until President Trump got involved into the fight, and then they began to all kneel as a FU to President Trump, and that's what it essentially was at that point.
Right.
The kneeling has really lost its meaning entirely, and again, I don't think that this is the right venue for it. I think we do need to respect our flag every single day. Many people have died on behalf of our flag, and again, racial injustice absolutely exists. Institutional racism does exist, and I think there's a method to providing a real solution, and it comes to actually being involved in a fight legislatively. In Chicago, there was a protest today about police reform. If you recall, Mayor Rahm Emanuel withheld the tape with Laquan McDaniel. If he wants to go, Kaepernick or anybody else, they should go and fight so Rahm Emanuel loses his seat. I think that's a good way of getting justice.
Yeah, any kind of way to get Rahm out of there is probably good with me too. Garland, let me ask you, do you have a problem with President Trump tweeting about this and kind of taking shots at the commissioner?
Well, you know, I think that, you know, President Trump kind of brings up issues that are, from my perspective, kind of below the presidency. But if he wants to talk about them, he has certainly has a right to do it. But I think what we do is we also often in the media is we reinterpret what these people are doing. They take a knee to protest injustice, and then we reinterpret it and say, well, it's against America or it's against something else when it has nothing to do with what their issue is.
I'll tell you
the last thing we need in America is forced patriotism.
Yeah,
you
well,
can
listen,
get that in North Korea.
No, I would not compare the United States to North Korea. I think that's pretty offensive. But I would also say that the reason people are confused about the symbolic nature of the protest is because they're doing it during the national anthem. So people obviously feel it's about disrespecting the country and the flag. If they did it at another venue at a different time, I think the message would be much more clear. Gianno, real quick, 20 seconds, go ahead.
I agree that the message would be much more clear if we had players some players I think are doing it. It's a popular thing at this point. I think if they really wanted to unite, they can come stand with me and the 2020 leaders of America, and we can go storm Capitol Hill and get something done legislatively. I think that's really impactful, and we would really see a system of justice in this country change.
Yeah, I think maybe if a bunch of football players stormed Capitol Hill, they might actually get something done in Congress. Guys, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right, straight ahead. There's Black Friday insanity, and then there's the utterly absurd. How the chaos may have reached a new low this year. Stay with us. Unless you're still passed out in a tryptophan-induced coma from Thanksgiving, you know it's Black Friday. It's, of course, the annual tradition where many of us seem to lose touch with any sense of social order and the rule of law. And today, anarchy took hold at all too many stores and malls across America.
You're breaking it.
Wow. And that's just a sample of what's happened over the last 24 hours. Laura Ingraham warned of this very problem around the Thanksgiving holiday on Wednesday.
But the reality is that in recent years, it's become something far different. A holiday that's been tarnished by never-ending sales on flat-screen TVs, appliances, all manner of jewelry, forcing folks to spend time waiting in line, sometimes for days, instead of cherishing the time they have with their families. How many many times have you stood in line for that $200 iPad on Black Friday, only to learn that the sale only applied to the first 5 sold? And turns out you're the 38th person in line. Read the fine print before you give up the stuff that really matters, the stuff that you're never going to get back and that won't ever go on sale. That's time with friends and family.
Joining us now to try to make some sense of the insanity is conservative comic and the head writer of Kennedy on Fox Business, Jimmy Fallon. So I just want to let the audience know, if the camera can see this, I have a slight wound on the forehead here. That was fighting over a TV on Black Friday this morning.
Yeah, but more importantly, did you get a good deal?
Yeah, great deal. 20% off.
It is interesting how this has become our own, like, running of the bulls. Like, Spain has that. We have the running of the flat screens now.
Right.
But I have to tell you, there's also a part of me that found this refreshing. Like, when I was
this.
When I was watching the one video of the woman getting dragged away, I was like, there's got to be a part of all of us that likes to see a woman get grabbed by someone besides Al Franken. Like, I found that to be... When she was yelling, "Let go," that was my natural assumption. And then I saw they were in a Walmart, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But it has become a little bit ridiculous. But at the same time, I do think, like, this year's surge is attributable to the soaring economy. I mean, that's, to go there.
So you're saying Trump is responsible for the Black Friday violence?
I'm not blaming him in the way other people would. Like, they'd say, oh, his rhetoric has inspired a lot of loose ball in the Walmart aisle. I'm not saying that. But I am saying, with unemployment being at a 17-year low, consumer confidence being at a high, I don't know what the exact number is, but because I write for Kennedy, but we're not big on facts. We're just having a good time.
That's okay.
But I do know that it's extremely high, and I think there's a lot more enthusiasm to be out here this year, because in years past, if you remember last year, we were kind of demonizing employers and celebrating those that gave their employees the day off. We were like, oh, it's Thanksgiving, they should be with their family. That was last year. This year, in a much better economy, Black Friday actually ate Thanksgiving. Like, stores open yesterday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, so I was driving around the other day, and I saw Best Buy, and there was a line of hundreds of people wrapped around at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, waiting for the midnight sale to start. They're not even eating Thanksgiving. They're not spending it with their families. They're waiting in line in the freezing cold for a deal. And you think that's a good thing?
Well, listen. I think it's sad that we do prioritize material possessions in this way, but I don't think it's solely attributable to...
You don't prize material possessions at all.
The thing for me is, like, again, I'm married 11 years, so this means, you know what I mean? Like, at the beginning of the marriage, yes, you might have to go there and buy some jewelry, save money. I'm married 11 years. I'm getting my wife a Tinder account for Christmas. She wants it. It's like her idea at this point. But I do think...
I think she already has one.
Yeah, hey, boom, there it is. But I do think on some level, it's also attributable to the NFL. I mean, last night, what was your option last night? It was shop or watch the Giants. You're going to watch a team that can't tackle.
That was a terrible game.
Yeah, you're going to watch a team that can't tackle, or you're going to go tackle people at a Sears. Well, and you don't have a lot of chances left to do that.
Now, if you were witnessing this, if you just happened to be there, you'd be one of those guys with your phones out there shooting it and then selling it to Fox News or to ABC.
How do you think I got hired here, man? That's how I got in the door.
Yeah, and we just want to tip our hats to all these people that are videotaping the chaos so we can show the rest of the country the chaos. There's something enjoyable about watching it and then judging these people.
Yeah.
But everybody likes a deal, except no one wants to actually go and wait in line. There's Cyber Monday right around the corner.
Yeah, which is amazing, too, because, like, you stay home. It's basically this without the violence. But the chance you're taking there is that there's Cyber Monday, but then there's, like, Siberian Tuesday. That's when, like, the hacker buys a jet ski with your credit card because you got a little carried away on Cyber Monday.
I actually just got a little alert from my bank saying that there's been some fraud on my card. Now I'm getting a little nervous. Shouldn't have done the online shopping.
See, my one perk is, like, I'm at that place in life where they steal my identity and then send me back notes. Like, dude, you got to do a little better over here. A couple of late payments.
Did you get that blazer at a discount today?
Are you assuming I should have? Was that another shot from Waters?
A deep discount. I'm only taking shots because you work for Kennedy.
That's true.
Think
we can take it. No, this is actually from the It Fits collection. Basically, like, you want to do the Ingraham angle tonight? I'm down to like one blazer that fits after yesterday, so that's all this is.
It looks good. All right.
Thanks for that.
Thank you very much. Up next, what you wouldn't dare want to miss tomorrow night. Back in a moment. And before we go, if you're hanging out eating Thanksgiving leftovers tomorrow night, don't miss my show, Water's World, airing at 8 p.m. Eastern. We've got a great lineup, including a special Thanksgiving-themed quiz. Needless to say, it does not end well. Here's a preview. What year did the Pilgrims get here?
1800s?
19s.
1700 something.
1600s.
You're on fire. Where did they land?
South Carolina.
Virginia?
New York? I have no idea.
Plymouth Rock.
Yes. And where is Plymouth Rock?
In Massachusetts.
You are incredible.
I am smart.
How'd the Pilgrims get here?
Boat.
What was the name of the boat? What was the name of the boat?
Plymouth? Rock?
The Nina the Pinta?
Santa Maria? I have no idea.
That was Columbus.
Yeah, okay, well, I was wrong.
The
Mayflower.
Yes. I love it when they get one right. All right, we've got that and much more, including a fiery interview with Michelle Malkin. So be sure to tune in at 8 Eastern tomorrow night. And that's all the time we have for tonight. Laura Ingraham will be back here on Monday. And I just wanted to thank all the doctors over at NYU Langone Emergency Center Hospital for stitching up, or not stitching up, but healing my Black Friday wound. So guys, thank you very much. Good night from New York.